Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Just gonna do a little car flow. I haven't really done just a flow video in a while. It's morning for me, I'm just getting started. Happy solstice. Is it solstice? Equinox. Solstice. I always say the wrong one there. Definitely some pretty big energies for me last night that I experienced. Difficulty sleeping, definitely a lot of what I like to refer to as physical upgrades in the last 2 days. I've really been guided to do more body work, and I talked about this in the last video a little bit with just an energy update. I don't know if I posted that one first or this one first, but self-care, body work, get a massage. I'm thinking about getting some acupuncture soon. I haven't done the acupuncture in a while, and I really respond positively to acupuncture. But if you are getting acupuncture, body work, things like that, it does begin with the diet, the breath work. That'll help kind of, keep the ball rolling, or literally keep the ball rolling, keep things moving in the system. With Christmas and the holidays, I've definitely been a little sludgier lately because I just have a tendency to eat kind of whatever's on hand. And as we know, if we're in an environment, whether it's going to people's houses or going into offices or gifts that people are sending, cookies, candy, all of that. And one of my biggest struggles has always been sugar. So that's something I've been really guided to take a look at again and kind of address, because all right, so I'll just go into a little bit from there. That was my little health energy update that I've been noticing in relationship to, and also a lot of the environmental pollutants, we could call it. It's good to try and at least drink as much water as we can, do detoxes from time to time, and at the same time, if we're doing a lot of those things, it's really important to ground. Everything I share on my channel or when I'm working with someone is all based on my own experience or what I've seen in relationship to others and their experiences as well. I can share things that have worked for other people, but most of the time I just share what's worked for me. So take what resonates, and the rest you can just kind of find your own path, find your own journey, find your own way. I'm just going to go into a little light language and a little flow. We'll start with the light language. Wea kune titi mak oahet esto kua et ine. Guys, I do a light language in the morning when I'm on my way into clients. I do it throughout the day to just shift the frequency around what I'm sharing or what I'd like to share. I enjoy it. A lot of the stuff that I do is because I share it because it brings me joy. And that is what's really important right now, is finding as many moments that make us feel good in a, not in a joyful way, finding those moments of bliss as often as we can throughout the day, especially if we're feeling a lot of stress or anxiety, more so than usual, right? Okay. It's going to be a little mashup. And there are light waves that are refracting, if you will, that are hitting the earth at certain angles that allow us to diffuse some of the confusion that is brought about by the tactics, underlying tactical movements, if you will, from those who would seek to express in their lower echelon rhythms. A lot of this is the play on words, and a lot of this is literal too. Kunesh dur bahat ik inher akur, te arhakur dishtor okur. We are being invited to focus not on the lower echelons and what they are up to. Play on words. They can't come up. They're trying, but they can't because, and they, I mean, we'll not go into who they are, but let's just say people who don't want to move. They want to move up, but they don't know how. They want to raise, they don't want to do the work, or they're doing things that are nefarious. And essentially, they need us, people who can raise their frequency and vibration, in order to keep them afloat from one perspective. This is shifting, this is transitioning, and from one perspective it has already changed and shifted. For the directive that we are following is no longer the lower echelons, although they would like us to think that is what is happening. But that has already been undone. What's done, what's been done, what was purposefully created to bind us into a certain frequency programming fear matrix is unraveling. The threads have been unbound, and we are not bound to certain agreements or ideas or prophecies that we have been gilded to in the past. Play on words. When I say that, I'm seeing guilted into, I'm seeing like when a metal binds to something, or we become part of a club, or we become part of a unit, like it's not necessary to continue in that way anymore. The earth is offering a boundless approach, if you will. So I'm seeing us like running across the earth, like running across the moon, where there's no gravity, and we're just like boing, boing, and basically there's nothing holding us down anymore from one perspective. Yet we must ground ourselves in order to receive this directive from the earth, in order to see the higher directives and operational pulls that are being communicated through the airwaves right now. What I'm seeing is a lot of chatter, which we all know is there through frequency, through talking heads, not the band, I like them. Basically, we can cut, what I'm hearing is cut to the chase, cut through the chase, cut through, I'm hearing chafe the wheat. Is that what, like an old term? Like get rid of the crap and get to the silk. Get to the silky gossamer threads that we are truly threaded to, that is always embedded within us, within our DNA spectral skin suit. And this allows us to cut away from these harnessing. So much is coming through. So I'm hearing harnessing linguistic, so certain spells have been cast, and the fear programming is a repeat business is what I'm hearing. So it's on repeat so that it continues to trigger within us a repetitive, repeating pattern that clogs our communability. It clogs our wheel. It clogs our ability to see more clearly. And for some of us, that's registered. We are acknowledging it. We've registered it, and we're like, okay, we're not going to continue to feed this concept. And I hear conceptualization. Yet we must continue to work to increase our flow efficiency. So what I'm seeing is all this stuff is scattered around. I did a video maybe a week or so ago about a ship going down and people trying to still hang on to the ship. I'll have to find that video. I say I'm going to, and then I forget. Apologies on that. But it's relevant to what's happening still for some. They are going down with the ship. They don't know the ship has gone down. But essentially what I'm seeing is it's like standing in the middle of a tornado. When we ground, we're receiving these energies from the earth, meaning walking on the earth barefoot. And while all of this other stuff is going on around us, we can see with clarity, and I'm hearing division. So this is a play on words. I get a lot of messages about division because there's this idea that and it's a play on words. So we're seeing the division. We can see where we are divided. We can see the division schemes and schematics. We can see how to bring ourselves back into unity and oneness with ourselves. We have to do that with ourselves first before we are trying to bring everybody else together. Because if we're scattered and codependent on somebody else being in oneness, we're not going to find our own abilities. We're not going to be able to find our own directive. We're not going to be able to see our own directions because our directions are not the same as somebody else's, even though we are a collective under one directive from one perspective, so to speak. And I'm hearing the division bell. So of course, whenever I think of the division bell, I think of a cracked bell. And what I'm hearing is slipping through the cracks. And this is a play on words too. I might have to come back to at a different time. Because from one perspective, so let's talk about the division bell. For me, the division bell is an upside down grail that's cracked. And from the work of Dan Winter, who I always talk about, if you flip that bell, I'm giving my own interpretation, and I'll give a kind of background on that, and I talk about this a lot. I have been writing in code or writing in flow or writing in my own wave form, and I had someone point out to me years ago, I believe it was John, I'm sorry if I forgot who it was or if I'm getting it confused. I think maybe a couple of people actually were like, have you ever listened to Dan Winter? And I had one time, and then I misplaced, I couldn't find the video that he had done. And then when this person, because I couldn't remember who it was, when this person brought him to my attention, I went back and looked it up and went, oh yeah, that was that video that I started watching that I never finished. I just found it like pinged something within me and then it got lost in the shuffle. It fell between the cracks. I'll get to that in just a moment. But it's this cracked bell, and a bell to me looks like a grail. And the grail is, when you flip it upside down, the heart. It's coherence. It's being in that space. It's literally and Tasha, if you're watching this can be something you can share with whoever you're working with, right? That heart frequency creates the cup that runneth over. It looks like in a grail when it's actually measured, a cup. So I see that as there's a crack in it and energy is leaking through it. So we can then see where the division occurred and we can seal that crack back together. And from one aspect, it's good to slip between the cracks. We're walking between worlds. We're time travelers. We're shamans, right? Angels in human form, whatever we want to label the human collective potential as. Also the connections that we've had all these years with our ancestors. But part of what this is all about is fixing this and sealing it back together. And essentially this helps us to see where we're divided, right? It also allows us to slide between the cracks and not really be seen. We don't get, we aren't drawing to us or attracting to us those triggers as much, or people who are really triggered. We slip between the cracks and they don't even notice us. So there's so many different layers here. And this weaving in between the layers, these bridges that we are creating, not only within our own human form, but that we are forming together as humanity. As we come together and reach through conformity, we find ourselves forming a new reality of complex capabilities and divisive schematics. This is all a play on words. For the new scheme addicts, I see that as schematics, planning ahead, chemistry. I see that as we're going upstairs, but we're doing it from inside of our bodies connected to Mother Earth. And this creates a different blueprint, a different drawing board. And unbeknownst, I'm still in flow, I'm just in a different kind of flow. Unbeknownst to many of us in that moment is when we seal the deal, so to speak. We seal the new agreements, we seal the deal and create from a new trajectory, a non-linear path, an ability to see more clearly in conjunction with the Earth and the planetary configurations that the Earth is also in conjunction with. This allows us to clearly compute, if you will, and reconfigure our entire system, our entire social, political, economic, body, ruling body, and our own bodily system, schematic. This allows us to reset our boundaries. It allows us to restake from one perspective our new alliances with Source and those beings and intergalactic brothers and sisters who also hold this same frequency, chemistry set of divisive complexities. And I'm hearing algorithms. So if we compare ourselves to a computer from an organic sense of the word, and we think about fluctuations and things like that, essentially we are being invited to see ourselves as these living, breathing algorithms that everything in the universe and environment is reacting to. Reacting isn't the right word. Responding is the right word. And that's another message that continues to come through. Let's get out of the state of reactivity, and let's come into the space of responsibility, improving and increasing our ability to respond in a productive, valuable, and harmonic, inclusive way, so that we are operating from our higher capacity for all of these things I just stated. So it perpetuates this ability to increase our mapping system, our ability to ping off one another, our abilities to connect to the true motherboard. And I know I'm using a computer as an example, but it's a good analogy. It's a good system to compare ourselves to. If you look at the terminology that computers were created from, it's a replica of our reality system from one perspective, right? And it creates a replicating ability. So this is also a play on words. So we become self-replicating. This isn't like we clone ourselves and go and do those kinds of activities. We literally are it's contagious from one perspective. It's a shareable wave, right? We then share this with each other and we increase our ability for sustainability. So we replicate the truth. We replicate more of the truth. We ripple out more of that energy, which then allows us to duplicate from that instead of a false replication or representation of an out of harmony synchronization. So we're not syncing up anymore to a disharmonious landscape or a disharmonious, I'm hearing adaptability nomenclature. A lot of this is a play on words. This allows us to mold our new frequency subsets and patterns and realities that we are constructing from a completely constructive way. And we then harvest our own abilities in a sustainable format rather than being harvested or doing harm to not only our environment but to one another. And I'm hearing increasing the juice, increasing the spin, increasing our own velocity. So this has to do with that. I'm hearing creating an anti-gravity machine, which is kind of a dichotomy. I think that's the word. Because we are creating gravity. I can't quite understand, I'll be honest, the teachings. I would love to have a conversation with Dan Winter and really, I have some really basic questions that I think the beginners would like to know, but I also have some really advanced questions that maybe someday I'll get lucky and he'll come on with me, and I guess I have to reach out and ask him first. We can talk about some of the things I've written about. Anyways, but it's literally a spin density, full spectrum frequency motherboard. And so what happens is it's a spin density, and it allows us, if you picture like paint, it allows us to branch out more, but it also keeps us centered, like a centripetal force, the center petals branching out. But it also, when you spin something, like if you spin if you've ever painted and you hose off the paint, anyways, up with a hose and it spins, it gets off all the excess and it only keeps what's needed. So it spins off all of the yuckiness. So what happens is when we get grounded, when we increase our spin rate, and I'm hearing it collectively allows us to tap back in to the root system and channel that is our true central source of frequency and energy, our true central channel. So I'm being guided to go back into this paint spin, literally. If you've ever hosed off a paint roller, it goes and all the excess paint spins off of it. And then what happens is underneath is that nice clean roller. So what we're doing is we're essentially cleansing out not only the programs and the density patterns that have created division within us, but it also allows us to get back to the center, that tube, the juice. And I was writing the other day about a cathode ray, which I don't really know much about. I have to go in and look that up. Apparently I know about these things. Right? We all do. So it helps us to get back down that tube, that center of gravity, and allows us to pull back into ourselves so that we can expand out from a more organized, right, ergonomical, more organized and centered, I'm hearing propensity. Oh boy, that's a play on words big time. So it allows us to stabilize our it allows us to write our program, the pen. It allows us to be our own quill, be our own feather. It activates our DNA, our feathers of frequency, our feathers of flight. And I'm hearing propensity, like then we create the siddhi, right? Our city within. And I know that has a play to do with the meaning of propensity, but I'm just kind of playing with that a little bit. So then we are the ones writing our own programs, and all that other crap that's stuck to us comes off. Guys, I have to end here because I'm running low on I almost said time, and then I was like, no, it's called space. But anyways, what happens is that also is key for us to then, I'm going back to what I said in the beginning of this, purge and clear. So there's a lot of people who've come to me who have been in fear about some of the things they've been putting into their body, that they have put into their body, or their family or friends that have put into their body. And I don't like to get into too much of what's going on about people's choices. All I'm going to say is, from one perspective, and this isn't necessarily what everybody's going to agree with, and it doesn't matter because we are multidimensional beings and there are many perspectives. But from this perspective that I'm talking about, this gives us the ability to clear all that crap out. So there is that. We have the perfect capability of healing ourselves. Our DNA is a living light source and code frequency. There are some who, if they're completely shut down and refuse to do the work and are not open-hearted and just mean, nasty humans, that is different. That's not what I'm referring to. Those of us that are doing the work, doing the intention, and creating this spin within our toroidal field are essentially spinning off all that stuff, and it dissolves. This is how shamans do it. They heal themselves. They help others to find that spin in which that other person can heal themselves. They connect with that frequency and energy that allows the stuff to be moved out, to be dissolved, to be integrated. So, of course, that doesn't mean we should go out and continue to drink a bunch of alcohol, and because that then decreases our spin, right? Or do drugs or things like that, even recreational drugs. There's a recreational, but how often are we doing it? How are we reliant